Dolls have always been a source of horror for many people, but those who love dolls find a source of peace and comfort from them. Some people would even ruin the lives of another to have that peace and comfort. And if you want to be friends till the end, don't forget to hit that subscription button down below so you could be alerted every single time I post a new true crime video. In 2011, in a city called Nizhny Novgorod in Russia, the local police were alerted that several bodies were dug up from local cemeteries and many graves were disturbed. The local community was upset by this and also scared of what else the perpetrator might do. On November 2nd, police spotted a man named Anatoly Moskvin acting suspicious in a graveyard. He was taken into custody, and investigators from the Center of Combating Extremism, which is a unit within the internal affairs of the Russian Federation, their main purpose is to protect state affairs and property. When they stepped inside of Anatoly's home, they found a massive amount of clutter. Included in the clutter was a large amount of books, documents, dolls of all sizes, and many stolen items from a graveyard, such as nameplates. Police also noticed maps of local cemeteries, photographs, and videos depicting open graves and exhumed bodies. He also had many books and instruction manuals on how to make dolls. While they were investigating, one of the officers bumped into one of Anatoly's dolls, and it started playing music as the doll kind of started to fall over, and it was very odd to him because the doll was very large compared to the other ones that he had in the home. This was a life-size doll, and they quickly realized that this was not a doll at all, but it was a rotting corpse. The officers found 26 bodies dating back to 2003. When police asked Anatoly if these were dead bodies, he simply said yes. Throughout the investigation, they found that the majority of the bodies came from the Nizhny Novgorod region. But it is believed that he may have made up to 150 dolls from corpses due to the amount of grave remnants that were found in his home. Upon arrest, Anatoly was given a psychiatric evaluation, and they were able to dissect exactly why he wanted to make dolls and why he was so obsessed with graveyards and dead bodies and overall just an obsession with death. Anatoly was born September 1st, 1996 in Gorky, Russia. His parents are Elvira and Yuri, and he mainly grew up in Nizhny Novgorod, which is the 5th largest city in Russia. He claimed he began wandering through cemeteries with friends when he was a child. And during his interviews, he claimed that when he was a young boy, he was walking home through a cemetery and he noticed a young girl's funeral procession going on, and this is a story he claimed, but it seems a bit outlandish, I guess you could say, but he claimed when he was a young boy that he was walking through a cemetery on his way home, and he saw a funeral procession for an 11-year-old girl, and the girl's family invited him over to view the body, and the family of the young girl forced Anatoly to kiss her face, and they were like shoving his head down into the casket and forced him to kiss the deceased. And he told investigators this. I don't know if it's true. They weren't obviously able to confirm this, but he did say this is what started his obsession with graveyards. And he claimed after this he had dreams of the girl for a few days, and that he really enjoyed the dreams because she would visit him in his sleep. Anatoly grew up and became a very well-known academic. He studied Celtic history and folklore. He maintained his deep interest in cemeteries, burial rituals, death, and dark magic. He studied the Celts because of their deep knowledge in death and ancient death rituals, such as sleeping in coffins to connect with the dead. He attempted to do this several times but found sleeping in coffins uncomfortable. Anatoly led a very secluded life. He mostly had contact with his work colleagues and parents, and he abstained from alcohol, drugs, and sex, and he just never dated or married or anything like that. He had really no interest in doing so, although he did tell investigators that he did want to have children. Anatoly, by all means, appeared to be doing well, at least in his academic life. He was well liked by his peers and was commissioned to do work several times by other academics. One of his most notable works was from 2005 when Oleg Ryabov asked Anatoly to summarize and list names of the dead in more than 700 cemeteries all across Russia. While he was on the job, he would often sleep in the cemeteries and drink rainwater that he collected on grave sites. While he was on this job, he was often questioned by the local police on suspicion of vandalism, but he was quickly let off the hook because he would state his academic credentials. During his interviews, Anatoly told the police that he had a great respect and sympathy for the dead, and that he would only exhume bodies that wanted to be taken out. He would often search the obituaries and look for a woman, mostly, or a young girl whose personality or whose story spoke to him, and then he would find their grave and go and sleep on it. And while he was sleeping, he claimed that the spirit came to him and that he would, then start working on exhuming their bodies, and he would only do it if the spirit asked him to do so. So he felt that it was okay to do so. And so over the course of 20 years that he claimed to do this, he said that he only took bodies that wanted to be exhumed. It became too painful for Anatoly to sleep on graves, and as he became older, he began exhuming the graves. He would often dig the body first and pour a solution of salt and baking soda and let the body dry at the graveyard. The families of the deceased would not even know sometimes that the body was gone because Anatoly would leave the graves looking undisturbed. Anatoly's victims were between the ages of 3 and 25, and they were all female. He would bring them to his home where he would begin the doll making process. He would put music boxes inside of the chest cavity and would often put any belongings inside of the body that they may have been buried with, such as jewelry or family photos. The bodies would be too lifeless, according to him, so he would wrap the dolls in strips of fabric, often covering their faces with wax and makeup to give them a doll-like appearance. He would even dress them up in brightly colored clothing and wigs and set the dolls up on furniture. This would make the bodies seem as if they were dolls, and his parents were in shock and disbelief. They knew that their son was eccentric, but they never knew he was a grave robber. And I personally believe the parents. When I was doing research for this case, I saw a lot of people were very skeptical of the parents and thought that maybe they helped him in some way, or that they were okay with it, or that they may have done something like this in the past. But I don't believe so, because the father had a heart attack when they told him what his son was doing, and his mother, Elvira, had to be hospitalized due to shock. So I don't believe that they knew about it. I really feel like because he had so many dolls, they just assumed that they were dolls, and his parents were quite elderly at the time, because he was in between his 40s and 50s when he was doing this actively. So I do believe that they really didn't know. And of course, if you are an older person and your parents are old, they kind of usually just mind their own business. They don't really bother you. So I'm assuming that his parents probably didn't even come over to his side of the home. They probably didn't even really go in his space too much. So he was able to get away with this for a long time because his parents were quite a bit older. Whether if he was a really young guy living with his parents, it may not have been that way so much. Anatoly told investigators he had a deep connection with the dolls. They had their own language, and he would even celebrate birthdays and holidays with them. He wanted a daughter, but due to the fact that he was celibate, he knew it wouldn't happen. He denied any sexual feelings for the deceased. Anatoly's psychiatric evaluation determined that he suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, and on May 25, 2012, the Leninsky District Court determined Anatoly unfit to stand trial. During his hearing, he said he knew that he was committing a crime, but he felt compelled to help the girls by digging them back up. He even said to the parents of the victims that they left their loved ones out in the cold, and he brought them back in to warm them up. The court decided that Anatoly needed coercive medical measures and was given a stay at a mental health clinic instead of prison. The victims' families were not happy that Anatoly was not given any prison time, and a few of the victims' families even believed that he should either get life imprisonment or that he should have been given the death penalty. But he didn't kill anybody, so most likely, really anywhere, they're not going to especially do the death penalty. So that would have been, I feel like, not even on the table, but they were very unhappy with this. And of course, like, that's got to be so sad, knowing that you lost your child and then somebody's digging them back up and messing with their corpse, and a lot of them didn't even know. So that's why, you know, it's really sad. So I do feel bad for them, and I do have sympathy. But he was given a stay at a mental health clinic, but one family was okay with him doing it. They said that Anatoly gave their child a better life than what she had when she was alive. So they were okay with him doing this, but still they had to charge him with something. They had to, you know, give him some sort of sentence, because he would have just continued to do this until, you know, the graveyard was empty, I feel like. So Anatoly's doctors have continually pushed back his release date. From 2014 and on, every year they've continued to add on 6 months to a year. So he is still in the facility. And in 2018, they thought that he had made a full rehabilitation, that he was okay to go back out in public, and that he would just need to maintain his meds or whatever he may be doing, any sort of therapy or anything like that. He would be able to do it outside and return back to his job and return back to his regular life. But right before they let him out of the facility, they did another psych evaluation on him, and they found out that he had not made any reform, barely. Like, he was completely still, you know, obsessed with death, obsessed with these girls, obsessed with dolls. And so they kept him in, and he wasn't released at that time. So that's why it's good to always have a second opinion from doctors, because one doctor was okay with him going out, and then they did another evaluation just to make sure, and, you know, he's still in there. So he's definitely not being let out, it appears, anytime soon. So I'm assuming that he's going to be in there for quite some time, unless he makes like an actual big reform in his life. So what do you all think about this case? I found it so like creepy and scary, quite frankly, that he was like sleeping on graves, and he was drinking the rainwater from cemeteries and just hanging out there all the time and digging graves and, you know, mutilating corpses and everything. I just found it really creepy. And looking around his apartment, it's really quite scary seeing those dolls propped up everywhere, and just like the chaotic nature of his apartment is just a lot. Like, it was really like, you know, like anxiety inducing looking at pictures of his apartment and looking at walkthrough videos that the police did. So it was really quite scary. And, you know, I love a good walk through a cemetery, especially in the fall around Halloween time. I don't see anything wrong with that, or like, especially like historic cemeteries. There's close ones to me where they have very, very old graves. I, you know, sometimes like to take a drive through them. It's interesting, and I think that it's okay. But I do think that he took it a couple steps too far, definitely, by being so obsessed with death and, you know, wanting to actually dig up bodies. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and if there are any other cases that you guys would like me to cover, whether it be true crime or just like spooky stories in general, please let me know in the comments. I always appreciate your guys' feedback. So otherwise, I hope you guys take care and stay safe out there. Bye-bye.